So it's been a while since I've done a really random review video, and I saw a movie recently that I thought warranted it. And so just as kind of a catch up in case you haven't seen one of these that I've done in the past, and again, it's been a long time, maybe a year or so since I've done this, I like to do reviews sometimes of movies that may have flown under the radar, either in a really good way or a really bad way. You know, a lot of times when I do these really random reviews, there's not a whole lot in the middle here. But the movie that I want to talk about today is Greenland, starring Gerard Butler. Hey, as always, if you're liking the content, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and please be sure to subscribe. So over the years, there have been a number of disaster movies, good and bad, right? So you think about things like Deep Impact, you think about Armageddon, 2012, The Day After Tomorrow. To me, in a lot of ways, they all start to kind of run together. And so when I see that a new disaster movie is coming out, I'm interested, but I'm also a little bit skeptical that it's going to do anything different. Greenland is a movie that's worth your time. It takes that disaster formula and it tries to approach it in as realistic a manner as possible. So the question that it's posing is, what if a comet were on the way to Earth and it became evident that it was going to impact the Earth? How would the government respond? How would humanity respond to that sort of thing? And so what it does is it sort of carries you through this family situation and having to deal with this. And before I go any deeper, I do want to highlight that there are spoilers here. So if you haven't seen the movie and if you're interested in the movie, go watch it, then come back and let me know in the comments if you agree with my assessment of this. So anyway, there's a comet on the way. It's a little bit bigger than the comet that killed the dinosaurs. And so it's breaking up into fragments. And initially, people are being told, oh, don't worry, most of these are going to pass us by. You might get a little bit of fireworks, a little bit of a light show, but there's not a lot to worry about. But what's really effective about this movie is that it shows everything from this family's perspective, and it feels at least somewhat realistic, in the beginning, that is. So this family's together, watching with some friends as part of a birthday party, as on television they broadcast the first impact. And what you see is sort of this news camera view of an ocean. I think it's supposed to be the Atlantic, and nothing really happens. And then in the distance, you hear this loud boom and everything shakes, and Gerard Butler's character goes outside to check on things, and sort of this shock wave from very far away finally arrives and knocks him off his feet. And not long after that, he receives on his phone something called a presidential notification. And as it turns out, the government has selected people who are highly skilled in certain areas to be shuttled off to a certain location to try and ride this out, because it's not long after this that it's disclosed that, in fact, a huge fragment of this is going to impact Europe, and it's going to be an extinction level event. So, of course, from there, you've got the struggle of Butler and his family trying to make it to safety. And again, the way that it plays out, even though I wouldn't say it's completely realistic, it's certainly much more realistic than what you get with these types of movies usually. And it works really well. It's sort of a harrowing journey that they go through. It goes from a lot of highs to as low as you can think of. And there's actually one scene in particular that, as a parent, just drives me crazy and makes me sick to my stomach. It's the sort of thing that could probably easily happen in this situation, but it's just totally gut-wrenching. And there is some resolution to it a little bit later, but when it played out, I was just staring at my TV thinking, no, please don't let this happen this way. But when you watch the movie, or if you have watched the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. As things continue in the film, again, it really does lean into the realism of the moment and trying to make you feel like this is an actual event that's occurring. I will say, however, that when you get into the final third and then maybe even the final 10 minutes or so, it goes from being, fairly realistic to not as realistic. And I don't want to say, well, I guess I can say, because I put a spoiler alert on the video, that in the final moments, once the inevitable happens and Butler and his family make it to safety, this gigantic comet fragment impacts the Earth, and it's something like 9 months later they emerge from a vault in Greenland where they have sort of gone to ride this thing out and have gone through great pains to get there, barely making it just in the nick of time, of course, that they open this gigantic vault door. It's almost sort of like a Fallout scene from the video game series Fallout, if you played any of those games. Where everything's been destroyed, but there's one, bird or a couple of birds that they can see as soon as they open this door that has survived somehow, and Earth is going to sort of move forward from there. But, given the size of this comet fragment and given sort of everything that's predicted to happen as a result of that, it seems like the destruction actually is not quite as devastating, or at least the atmospheric destruction, the climactic destruction that plays out is not quite as thorough as you might expect. So it feels a little bit Hollywood there at the very end, but I think this is really a movie worth checking out. I saw the trailers for this and I thought it looked cool, but ultimately it's probably going to be something, again, like Deep Impact, maybe a little bit realistic, but ultimately kind of stupid. And don't get me wrong, it does have some, moments in it that are a little bit dumb, but I think what makes it work is that you've got characters you care about who are flawed, but who are trying to do the right thing and are simply trying to survive. And I think in that regard, sort of coupled with the way that the filmmakers try to make sort of the multiple impacts of this comet as it sort of enters the atmosphere feel realistic, it works. And it's a really good movie. And the whole time I watched it, I was wrapped up in what was happening. I cared about the characters. And I think, with any movie, that's a good sign. So I think for a lot of people, this one flew under the radar. I don't think yet it has showed up on HBO Max. I think it's going to eventually. I rented it. I think it was something like a $6 rental on Vudu. But, whether you wait to see it when it shows up on something like HBO Max or Netflix, or whether you want to rent something a little bit different that may have not caught your eye the first time when you heard about it, it's certainly worth a viewing, I think, especially if you enjoy those types of movies. So anyway, if you've seen Greenland, let me know, again, what you think in the comments below. Let's talk about it. Do you think it's a good disaster movie, or do you think it is a disaster in and of itself? So, as always, thanks for watching. Please stay tuned. I'm going to have a review of Godzilla vs. Kong, which is showing up on HBO Max on March 31st, I believe, so that should be tomorrow. I'm recording this video on Tuesday the 30th, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm really pumped about that, actually. I love Godzilla movies. I love King Kong movies. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'll have my review of that coming soon.